A very good afternoon to one and all, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed dignitaries. I, Lipika Roy, Deputy Director, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India, extend a very warm welcome to the inaugural session of the conference, India 2047, Building a Climate Resilient Future. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce you all to our distinguished dignitaries for today. I request them to kindly proceed to the dais. Shri Suman Berry, Honorable Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog. Shri Kirti Vardhan Singh, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and Ministry of External Affairs. Shri Tarun Kapoor, Advisor, Prime Minister's Office, Government of India. Shri Tanmay Kumar, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Mr. James Stock, Vice Provost, Harvard University. Professor Tarun Khanna, Director, Lakshmi, Mittal and Family, South Asia Institute. And Shri Naresh Pal Gangwar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Thank you so much to our distinguished guests. I would now invite Mr. Hitesh Hathi, Executive Director, Lakshmi Mittal and Family, South Asia Institute, to kindly give the opening remarks.
Lipika, thank you. Thank you. It's quite an honor to be here. So, dear guests, friends, distinguished guests and friends, I should say, and colleagues, it is my deep, deep honor to be here, to be part of welcoming all of you. For those of you who are our speakers, I want to say all of us are looking forward to hearing from you later today and over the next few days. This is a gathering of 4 days, and it's really a pleasure to be in this extraordinary space to hold this event. As Lipika just said, I'm Hitesh Hathi. I'm with the Lakshmi Mittal and Family South Asia Institute at Harvard University, and our mission is to connect Harvard and its faculty and research to India and South Asia. We are based in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the university, but we also have offices in other places, including a very bustling office in Connaught Place here in New Delhi. I invite all of you to come and join us there. You'll hear more about us over the next days, so I want to just take a couple of minutes and turn to the gathering at hand and talk about why it's unique, why it's actually wondrous, because this is an interdisciplinary gathering, which is very rare in the world. For the range of people who are here, the range of work they do, the tenacity of commitment they have. We have scholars from all over the world in multiple disciplines, including many of our colleagues at Harvard, physical sciences, healthcare, public policy, literature, and the arts. We have government officials and government agencies, policy experts from both academia and government and other walks of life. We have civil society organizations, artists, and most of all, I want to say, we also have citizens here who care deeply about this issue. So I'm really delighted to have you here with us in this beautiful space. As I'm going through all of us who are here, I'm thinking it's a little bit of a mela, which is a nice thing. So I want to just take a minute and describe to you the journey that has brought us to this hall. Because in every tradition in India, the journey is a very special and important thing, whether you speak Sanskrit or Bengali or Tamil or Urdu. There are 1,000 poems and 1,000 metaphors about what journeys mean. Our journey actually began with what you would call the DNA in English, or in Indian languages, the Swabhava of the Mittal Institute, which is interdisciplinary work. And since I mentioned Mela, let me say we did some years ago a very comprehensive study of the Kumbh Mela, where we brought together experts from public policy, architecture, town planning, sanitation, healthcare, data science, economics, and also, of course, people from religion and spiritual traditions studies, to figure out how this event happens and how it has to be seen in a composite way. So our journey to this conference began with that inspiration 2 years ago, we formed our climate platform, which we launched right here in New Delhi with the partnership of CII, with the help of Niti Aayog. And as we were creating that platform under the leadership of Tarun Khanna, who is here, we also acquired new partners, the Salata Institute at Harvard University, whose support has been crucial to the work we've done and are doing in the research that we're doing on the ground in India. It is the seriousness and the quality of that research which led us to thinking about this conference. You'll hear more about that research and its results as we go on. And as we began to plan this conference on research and how to take it forward and how to really use it in ways that would be transforming, we found extraordinary new partners, of course, in Niti Aayog, but also in the Ministry of Environment, Forests, and Climate Change. I want to thank you for joining us, because without you, I want to acknowledge we would not be in this space and having this gathering. Your partnership will allow us to convert together this work from research into something, to use a phrase out of the Bhagavad Gita, Loka Sangraha, sustaining the world. So, welcome to this gathering. It is a mela. Like all melas, there will be some confusion, some chaos, but there will be a lot of joy, insight, and knowledge. So this is a journey of knowledge, and I'm very happy to have you with us over the next 4 days, and I hope in the long run. Thank you all.
Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. I would like to recall the words of Atharva Ved, Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, agyanan mam gyanam gamaya. Let there be light where there is darkness, and let there be wisdom where there is ignorance. It is now time for the ceremonial lighting of the lamp, a symbol of knowledge, wisdom, and progress. I invite our esteemed dignitaries to kindly proceed for the lighting of the lamp. I would also like to invite Mr. Sanjay Sharma and Ms. Sandra Shuman to kindly come up on the stage and join in the lighting of the lamp.
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं।
Now that the program has ceremonially begun, to extend a warm welcome and express our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished guests, I would request Srimati Rajashri Ray, Economic Advisor, MOEFCC, to kindly felicitate Shri Suman Beri, Honorable Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog. I would request Mr. Hitesh Hathi, Executive Director, Lakshmi, Mittal and Family, South Asia Institute, to kindly felicitate Shri Kirti Vardhan Singh, Honorable MOS, MOEFCC and Ministry of External Affairs. I now request Srimati Ruchika Droll, Deputy Secretary, MOEFCC, to felicitate Shri Tarun Kapoor, Advisor, PMO India. I invite Dr. Monica Sethia to kindly felicitate Shri Tanmay Kumar, Secretary, MOEFCC. I request Shri Abhishek Acharya, Director, MOEFCC, to kindly felicitate Mr. James Stock, Vice Provost, Harvard University. I request Srimati Shweta Kumar, Director, MOEFCC, to kindly felicitate Professor Tarun Khanna, Director, Lakshmi Mittal and Family, South Asia Institute. Lastly, I would request Shri Arvind Agarwal, Director, MOEFCC, to kindly come up on the stage and felicitate Shri Naresh Pal Gangwar, Additional Secretary, MOEFCC. As the ancient wisdom of the Vedas remind us, Prithvi Santutaka Bhuyat, may the earth remain balanced and prosperous. This shloka encapsulates the essence of climate adaptation as well as resilience, the need to respect, protect, and nurture our planet for the future generations. Climate change is one of the most critical challenges of our time, demanding collective global efforts as per the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development. The increasing frequency of extreme climatic events across the globe underscores the urgency of this initiative. India stands at a crucial juncture in its development trajectory. As we move towards 2047, marking 100 years of our independence, the challenge of climate change looms larger than ever. Rising temperatures, erratic rainfall, and extreme weather events threaten not only our environment but also the livelihoods, health, and well being of millions. For a developing country like India, where climate sensitive regions and sectors like agriculture, fisheries, forestry, and water resources form the backbone of the economy, adaptation is no longer an option, it is an imperative. Adaptation is not just managing risks, it is also about integrating climate resilience into the national policies, the economic planning process, and the governing structures to ensure long term sustainability. Integrating climate resilience requires a multi pronged approach, combining scientific risk assessments, climate resilient infrastructure, traditional knowledge, and gender mainstreaming, financial protection mechanisms, and policy driven strategies. Adaptation efforts require significant financial investments that include mobilized blended finance models, private sector contributions, and international support. A climate resilient future is key to ensuring sustainable growth, safeguarding our natural resources, and protecting the vulnerable communities. India has demonstrated significant strides in its climate actions, from achieving its NDCs well in advance of time, setting ambitious renewable energy goals, to pioneering adaptation strategies, and it remains committed to its climate actions and goals. This conference is being organized by the Lakshmi, Mittal and Family South Asia Institute and the Salata Institute for Climate and Sustainability at Harvard University with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. This collaboration aims bringing together leading experts in climate science, medicine, public health, labor, business, economics, urban planning, and stakeholders from across the country, from government, academia, civil society, private sector, and all relevant stakeholders. Over the next few days, we will engage in interdisciplinary dialogue, bridging the gaps in knowledge, and fostering collaboration for actionable strategies for a climate resilient India. The conference will focus on 4 key themes: climate science of heat and water and its implications on agriculture, health, work, and built environment. Several cross-cutting issues such as governance, traditional knowledge, gender, and financing will also be explored. Our goal is not only to generate tangible outputs like research ideas and technical documents that will contribute to global climate initiatives, but also serve as a platform to discuss adaptation and resilience strategies, bringing together key stakeholders to ensure a sustainable future. Taking the event forward, I would like to invite Shri Tanmay Kumar, Secretary MOEFCC, to kindly give the welcome address. Shri Kumar is a 1993 batch IAS officer of the Rajasthan cadre. He has held several positions in the central government in addition to his vast experience of over 27 years working for the Rajasthan government in a variety of roles. Please welcome, sir.
Honorable Minister of State, Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Shri Kirtivartan Singh Ji, our esteemed dignitaries on the dais, distinguished researchers, policy makers, industry leaders, and all participants. A very good afternoon to all of you. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this conference cum workshop on India at 2047 Building a Climate Resilient Future. This conference marks an important step in India's journey as a responsible player in global climate action. On this very important occasion, it is my privilege to welcome Shri Suman Berry, Vice Chairperson of Niti Aayog and a renowned economist, our Honorable Minister, Shri Kirtivardhan Singh Ji, who has guided us in this journey, and yesterday he was present while we did the workshop on National Adaptation Plan. We miss today the presence of our Honorable Minister, Shri Bhupendra Yadav, who had a personal bereavement in the family and could not make it to the occasion. I take this opportunity to welcome Shri Tarun Kapoor, advisor to PM, who has had a very distinguished career as a civil servant in the IAS and who has been guiding us in the ministry in various climate actions in programs of the MOFCC, and who has the guiding spirit behind the policies and programs that we implement in the ministry. I also welcome Mr. James Stock, Vice Provost, Harvard University, and Shri Tarun Khanna, Director, Mittal, South Asia Institute. And I welcome all the other dignitaries, representatives from the scientific community who have gathered here, and my colleagues in the ministry. I would also like to extend a very special thanks to Shri Naresh Gangwar, my colleague in the ministry, who has been very instrumental in coordinating with Harvard University in organizing this program. I would like to especially welcome the renowned experts from Harvard University, the professors who have actually taken time out from the busy schedule to be with us today to understand the challenges of climate change that India is facing. And their vast knowledge and experience in this field would guide us ably in working out our own strategies and in adapting ourselves across different geographies, socioeconomic conditions, and to emerge with solutions to tackle the impact of climate change. We acknowledge and appreciate the initiative taken by the Lakshmi Mittal and Family South Asia Institute and the Salata Institute for Climate and Sustainability, housed in Harvard University, in partnering with the ministry in organizing this conference cum workshop, which could not have come at a more opportune time when we are in the midst of preparing our own national adaptation plan and aligning it with the global goal on adaptation and its targets. While the reasons for climate change are global, the adaptation strategy needs to be local and take into account the variations across regions, across different time frames. In a vast country like ours, it is more than true for other countries which have a small area and small topography and is able to come out with a single strategy. Ours has to be, across different regions, and it has to be tailor-made to suit those regions. While we have the cold Himalayas in the north, we have oceans in the south, high rainfall in the Cherrapunji in the northeast of India, to the Thar Desert in the west. We have 1,382 islands, both habited and uninhabited, across the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea, and the Bay of Bengal. Monsoon has a critical role to play in our agriculture and food security. While we have extreme cold in the northern part and have cold waves, we also have heat waves. The challenges are many, even under normal circumstances, and has got compounded with the challenges of climate change. Something not our doing, but something that we have to learn to adapt to. Our goal is to move beyond theoretical frameworks and towards scalable solutions that safeguard lives, protect ecosystems, and strengthen our economy against climate shocks. India has long been a global champion in climate action, sustainability, and environmental protection. And the motto of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is Prakriti Rakshati Rakshita, that is, nature protects if protected. And this is the motto that is applicable across the country, across in whatever we plan and do. This has been an integral part of our culture and tradition. The adaptation strategy that we build has to be multifaceted, has to be multi-sectoral, participatory, inclusive, just, gender responsive, climate resilient, and should not have an adverse impact on livelihood and food security and the prosperity of our fellow citizens. As an integral part of our strategy, we need to focus on adapting to an environment-friendly lifestyle, which is the vision that Honorable Prime Minister has laid through Mission Life, an India-led global mass movement focused on mindful and deliberate utilization of resources rather than mindless and destructive consumption. At the core of the adaptation strategy is the whole of government and whole of society approach for mainstreaming policies and programs at the central, state, and local levels. It is only then that we can shape our national adaptation plan to take up the challenges in the field of agriculture and allied sectors, water security, health of human beings, flora and fauna, protection of our rich forest and biodiversity and the ecosystems. Our adaptation strategy also needs to focus on poverty alleviation and livelihoods. It should be able to draw upon traditional wisdom by integrating modern scientific research with indigenous and community-based practices to develop appropriate adaptation strategies that are inclusive, innovative, and culturally grounded. We also need to work out an adaptation strategy to finance the adaptation plan, because no plan is good unless it is actually implemented on the ground. And this is the most challenging part of the adaptation strategy. How to define finances to actually fund the adaptation plan. And that finances, the climate finance that we talk about, must meet the requirement of scale, speed, and scope, and should be substantially grant-based rather than loan-based, which puts disproportionate strain on these scarce and the limited financial resources. This is a challenge that we have to collectively work out to be able to finance the adaptation plan that we collectively work out for ourselves. This conference is an opportunity for us to bridge knowledge gaps, learn from the experience of the domain experts, accelerate solutions, and drive policy reforms that can better prepare us for these challenges. The themes we explore here will not remain confined to the conference halls, but they must translate into concrete, affordable, and implementable action on the ground. Over the coming 4 days, this conference will focus on 5 key themes: heat science, heat and health, heat and workplace, heat and food systems, heat and built environment. The challenges in each theme would be outlined, and so also our present and future strategies, which would go into the preparation of our adaptation plan related to these themes. Cross-cutting issues such as governance, financing, and data collection, science-based and evidence-based approach, all will be discussed. The expected outcome is to map areas of research, policy making, and actions which can be taken in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. We look forward to a meaningful deliberation and tangible outcomes at the end of day 4, when the conference and the workshop conclude. All of us, policymakers, researchers, industry leaders, community representatives, think tanks, and experts, need to sit together, work together to secure a future that is not just climate resilient, but also equitable, leads to prosperity, and where there is sustainable growth and development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for setting the tone of the conference. I now request Professor Tarun Khanna to kindly deliver his opening address, Professor Khanna is the Jorge Paulo Lemann Professor at Harvard and Director of the Lakshmi Mittal and Family South Asia Institute. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar. Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming here. Please let me add my thanks for this amazing convening. We're very privileged from Harvard University to be in the midst of so many eminences. Honorable Minister, Shri Berry, all my colleagues, thank you again for this opportunity. I'm not sure why I've been given the podium twice to make these opening comments and then again to make some comments, so I'll keep this one extremely brief. If I think about the comments that my colleague Hitesh Hathi made a few minutes ago, there's one thing I'd like to add about the spirit with which my colleagues from Harvard and I come here to this audience and the citizenry amassed here, and that's the spirit of collaboration and breaking down schisms in different ways. To us, the institute that we represent, both the Mittal Institute and the Salada Institutes at Harvard, are both dedicated to breaking down barriers in some ways. We've spoken about interdisciplinarity. That is a cliched term. We hear it all the time, but we like to walk the talk, and we like to actually bring people together so that we can bridge these disciplinary boundaries. Like all human beings, we all succumb to jargon and specialization and overspecialization, and that has its merits, but it also has deep flaws. And one of the things we've learned in the last 15, 20 years is that by coming together and engaging in honest, somewhat jargon-free exchange, my mother and my nani always used to say that if you can't explain it simply to us, then you don't know what you're talking about. And I think there's deep truth in it. And that spirit has stood us well, and I hope it stands us in good stead in the couple of days of deep deliberation that many of us will have tomorrow and day after, and then, of course, the concluding day on day 4. There are a couple other schisms I'd like to mention. One, of course, is the sort of unfortunately natural schism between different knowledge systems. We have an ancient tradition in India going back several thousands of years, much of which is dedicated to coexistence with nature. We have a different knowledge system in the much younger country of the United States that has advanced in different ways on the scientific front, and these two coming together, in a sense, is another bridging of schisms. And we see this again reflected in daily life in so many ways. Just a couple of days ago, a bunch of the scientists and I, with our good friend Claudio, a photographer, went to see the stepwells in Ahmedabad that many of you would have seen. And the stepwells, which are these amazing constructions that if you haven't seen, you must see, they're all over India, essentially are deep crevices that go down and are both repositories for water and convening places and places of religious significance. And I'm bringing this up because it reminded me of my ancestral home, which is a Haveli in Purani Delhi, in Old Delhi. We didn't have a stepwell in the house, but we had a very deep crevice inside the Haveli, where I remember as a child of 3 or 4, as soon as the clock hit 1 p.m. and the heat was unbearable outside, we would all decamp, all meaning most of the women in the house and the little children, would all go deep into the basement and sit there for hours on end until it cooled down and we came back upstairs. And we find ourselves now thinking that this ancient idea of leveraging the cooler recesses of Mother Earth might stand us in some good stead. Now, it may sound crazy to my urban scholars who are sitting in the audience, who are all helping us build on terrestrial land, but I think we have to think creatively about different circumstances, and I'm hoping that comes up. This is a conversation that my friend Dan Schrag, the climate scientist, and I have had on many occasions about learning from the past in some ways. So I'm just hoping that in the next 2-3 days that this convening becomes an opportunity for us to come together. And I want to end on just one extremely positive note, which is the ministry represented on the stage, the Prime Minister's office in so many different ways behind the scenes, and of course, Niti Aayog, represented by Shri Berry here on the stage, have all been extraordinarily supportive of our attempt to bring scientists both from India and from the United States and other parts of the world together to address this almost existential challenge of climate adaptation. So with that, please let me reiterate my welcome to you and thank everybody again for convening here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for such an insightful address. Looking forward to learn more from you in the coming sessions. I would now invite Mr. James Stock to kindly deliver his address. Mr. Stock is the Vice Provost for Climate and Sustainability, Harvard University.
Thank you so much. It really is an honor and a privilege to be here. I want to start by thanking all of those who have worked so hard to put this conference together, including the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change, the Mittal Institute at Harvard, the Office of the Prime Minister, the National Foundation for India, Sustainable Futures Collaborative, the Nand and Jeet Kemka Foundation, the Natural Resources Defense Council, NIDI Ayog, and the Center for Energy, Environment, and Water. Harvard has a long history of work on climate and sustainability. 4 years ago, then President Larry Bacow recognized that, despite the good work, Harvard needed to do more to drive progress on this most pressing problem of human challenges. For that reason, he developed the Harvard Climate Initiative to advance and expand Harvard's work on climate. That work continues to be a core mission of the university. At the center of that initiative is the Salata Institute for Climate and Sustainability, which I direct. The Institute focuses on the core academic missions of the university, teaching and research, in the service of developing climate solutions. The Institute has core research programs, each of which collects groups of faculty and students across all of Harvard schools into interdisciplinary teams that are animated by a central purpose related to climate solutions. Their work extends across the university, across the United States, and across the globe. The work of these teams is wide-ranging and includes both reducing emissions or mitigation and adapting to climate change. For example, one team is working on mitigation and focuses on detecting methane emissions using satellites and how regulation, corporate commitments, and international agreements can be used to reduce those emissions. Another of those teams focuses on adapting to heat and humidity in South Asia, and I am grateful for the central role that they have played in organizing the scientific program of this conference. A core tenet of our efforts is that they are most effective when they are done in concert with stakeholders and local partners. We learn from local partners what the real challenges are so that the work done by Harvard researchers is more relevant and more useful. In this work, our shared goal, our shared commitment, is to finding solutions to climate problems that improve human welfare. This shared commitment is especially important today. Even as the severe weather and heat waves from climate change are getting worse, we are seeing how difficult it is to make progress on climate challenges. The origins of today's climate change is, of course, emissions of greenhouse gases, most notably carbon dioxide from energy. But we are seeing how difficult decarbonization of the energy system actually is, not just from a technical perspective, but from the perspective of political feasibility in developed countries. There, the challenge is balancing the need to decarbonize with the cost of energy and the need for energy security and reliability. In developing economies, the challenge is exacerbated by the imperative of increasing energy as a foundational element of economic growth. Because decarbonization is difficult and will take time, global temperatures will continue to rise over the lifetimes of nearly everybody in this room. Today, it is therefore important for us to develop resilient responses to the health and welfare challenges that climate change has brought and will bring in the future. Key among these is dealing with the climate-induced challenges of heat, a key theme of this conference. I'm excited to see the conference presentations and workshops, which are filled with ways that science and research can make positive contributions to welfare at the human and local level. The process of research, learning, and implementation is never over. It is an ongoing cycle. With each answer comes new questions. I am also excited to see this collaboration among such a broad range of researchers and other participants. In this time of uncertainty, it is especially important to have human connections among those from different backgrounds sharing the same goals of tackling the challenges of heat and humidity. Those challenges range from ones of basic climate science, about which we will hear more shortly from my colleague, Professor Dan Schrag, to ones of physiology and the human response to perceived heat, to ones of economics, labor markets, insurance, building design, and policy. The work at this conference aspires to be the best of what universities, including Harvard, do. Push the boundaries of knowledge, partner with the broader world of practice, and work collectively towards improving human welfare. Thank you all for attending.
That was an extremely percipient address, sir. I would now like to invite Mr. Tarun Kapoor to kindly address the gathering. Shri Tarun Kapoor is currently serving as Advisor, Prime Minister's Office, Government of India.
Good afternoon to all the participants, dignitaries here on the dais. I am really happy to see so many professors from Harvard and all learned people, so much knowledge in this room, and so many participants. Climate is probably the most discussed topic in seminars and in conferences, and rightly so, because of the uncertainties, challenges, and probably the impact it can have on everyone, on a common man, on each individual. And now I think we've reached a stage where the impact is visible. So even a common man now realizes that the temperatures are going up in Delhi or in India. We see 50 degrees every year now, and then erratic rainfall and floods, flash floods, and then glow-offs, and so many incidents keep taking place, disasters which we probably not prepared for. And we've also seen that the poorest or the weakest are the most vulnerable. And at times we've not, despite a lot of preparation, we've not been able to take timely action, and there have been huge problems and huge losses. There's lots to learn, lots to understand, lot of research which is required. We know all that, but then whatever learning is currently available in the world, if we can put that at the right place and to use, then probably still we would be serving the society or the humanity to a very large extent. What I have realized is that while some of the solutions which are suggested may sound very good, but then they're not practical, because either they're very expensive, and we are asking the poorest to change. We are asking the poorest to maybe not only change the lifestyle, but also to do certain things which are very expensive for them. For example, the most vulnerable, especially in hill areas, we've seen they tend to build houses in the most slopey or high slope areas, because that's the cheapest, or very close to, say, rivers or streams, and then those areas become very vulnerable, and then suddenly we will have some government direction or some court order which will say that everyone shift away from that area. But that doesn't happen. People shift temporarily, then again they come back, and then what we find is that in the next flood or whenever that same incident happens again, after a few years, again those people are affected. So our solutions have to be practical, and we have to take into account how resources will flow to where we need the change, and those resources have to flow to individuals. So there are some solutions which probably the government has to implement. There are some solutions which large organizations may have to implement, but most of the solutions have to be implemented by individuals or families, where then they become difficult. The big challenge which people keep talking about is relating to food, which we've not really experienced so far. Probably in the coming years that may also become visible, but then we have to prepare for that. And I'm quite sure that scientists are working on varieties which will be suitable for the kind of climate we expect in the future. But then again, the solutions have to be such that they get implemented and also remain within the costs or the affordability of nations which are not so rich and individuals who are not so rich. Going forward, we also have to work on better forecasts. We also have to work on technology which can help us, and also knowledge which is available. It should reach everyone, like it should reach where it is required, and which would also mean that use our educational institutions, use other means to disseminate the knowledge which we think is required, and also maybe see how knowledge can be transferred from the developed world to nations probably which do not have that kind of knowledge or information. I am quite sure that with such knowledgeable people here, there will be good deliberations and we'll get good recommendations. And from the government, we would be very happy and looking forward to some good ideas and good suggestions which we can implement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those really profound words. Next, we have a video message from Mr. Alan Garber, President of the Harvard University.
Greetings. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you today at the India Building a Climate Resilient Future conference, but I'm pleased that the Vice Provost for Climate and Sustainability, Jim Stock, and the Director of the Mittal Institute, Tarun Khanna, are with you to represent Harvard's leadership. I had to make the difficult decision to remain on campus during this critical time so I could lead the university's response to rapidly changing federal policies concerning higher education in the United States. While I remain on campus to lead our university through one crisis, I know that you are all gathered this week to discuss another critical challenge that our world is facing: climate change. I want to thank the Harvard Lakshmi, Mittal and Family South Asia Institute, the Harvard Salada Institute for Climate and Sustainability, and India's Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change for their collaboration, bringing together experts from a stunning range of fields at this week's events. Before I turn to the topic we have convened to discuss, climate change, I want to call attention to Harvard's Lakshmi, Mittal and Family South Asia Institute and the role they have played in deepening Harvard's connection with India and South Asia. With offices on Harvard's campus and in New Delhi, The Mittal Institute serves as a hub for connecting Harvard with India. It supports multidisciplinary research programs in the region, funds Harvard faculty members and students with grants for their South Asia-related studies, provides fellowships and associateships for South Asian scholars, sponsors lectures and conferences by distinguished academic, governmental, and business leaders, and hosts social events to build a strong community. The Institute brings together faculty from across the university on interdisciplinary research projects that have resulted in comprehensive studies of the Kumbh Mela and the partition of British India. All of this work has been done with partners in India. That is true of the Lancet Citizens Commission on Reimagining India's Health System, which represents an extensive partnership with Indian institutions, both government and academic, as well as scholars. It is also true of our latest project on climate change, as is evident in this partnership with the ministry here today. While Harvard has long been invested in the critical challenge of climate change, our work became more focused and strategic in 2022 when we established the Salata Institute for Climate and Sustainability. The Institute's mission is to develop and promote durable, effective, and equitable solutions to the climate change challenges confronting humanity. In 2023, the Salata Institute and Mittal Institute started a research cluster on climate adaptation in South Asia to advance climate adaptation research and implementation at the household, community, state, and federal levels. The cluster collaborates with in-region partners, including governmental agencies, research institutes, social entrepreneurs, and trade unions. Our climate cluster has a variety of projects, including heat adaptation, and also pays great attention to climate literacy, as in our highly successful public video, Garmi, on the dangers of heat exposure. I'm thrilled that the institutes could come together with the government of India to hold this important event. Thank you again for allowing me to tune in, and I wish you a very successful convening.
It is my absolute pleasure to now invite Shri Kirtivardhan Singh to kindly deliver his address. Sir is the Minister of State for Environment, Forest and Climate Change and the Minister of State for External Affairs.
Shri Suman Beriji, Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog, Shri Tarun Kapoor, Advisor to our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Tanmay Kumar, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Mr. James H. Stock, Vice Provost, Harvard University, Shri Tarun Khanna, Director, the Lakshmi, Mittal and Family South Asia Institute and Harvard University, Shri Naresh Pal Gangwar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change, distinguished dignitaries, esteemed scholars and researchers, government representatives, industry leaders, and members of the civil society. Namaskar, ladies and gentlemen. It's both an honor and a privilege to be a part of this inauguration of this pivotal conference, which is titled India at 2047, Building a Climate Resilient Future. This gathering marks a defining moment in our collective pursuit of a sustainable future, bringing together some of the brightest minds in climate science, public health, labor, urban planning, and governance. And I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Harvard University, especially the Lakshmi, Mittal and Family South Asia Institute and the Salata Institute for Climate and Sustainability for co-organizing this vital dialogue with us. Ladies and gentlemen, India has always believed that nature is not just a resource to be used, but also a sacred part of life that must be respected and protected. This deep-rooted understanding comes from our ancient wisdom, which sees humans and nature as inseparable. And long before climate change became a global crisis, our traditions emphasized the importance of conservation. Our Vedas, the Upanishads, teach us that rivers, forests, and the land are not merely physical entities, but living forces that sustain us. They remind us that caring for nature means caring for ourselves and safeguarding the future of our generations to come. Under the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Modi ji, we are also marching towards the goal of Viksit Bharat 2047, a future where development is not just about economic growth, but also living in harmony with nature. And at the heart of this vision lies climate resilience, seamlessly interwoven with our developmental goals. Our Prime Minister's clarion call for lifestyle for environment, life, is not just a policy directive, it is also a transformative movement. This vision reinforces the fundamental truth that true development does not come at the cost of nature. It flourishes alongside it. And as we stride towards our vision of 2047, we are not just building a developed India, but we are also shaping a resilient and responsible India. Ladies and gentlemen, India today stands tall on the global stage, not just as a nation committed to combating climate change, but also as a beacon of proactive leadership and sustainable development. We are not merely responding to the climate crisis, but we are also shaping the global agenda with decisive actions and innovative policies. Our National Action Plan on Climate Change has driven transformative initiatives in renewable energy, energy efficiency, sustainable agriculture, and climate resilience. And these efforts reflect India's holistic approach, one that seamlessly integrates economic growth with our environmental responsibility. I would also like to share some of our remarkable milestones that we have reached. The emission intensity of our GDP has reduced by 36% between 2005 and 2020, and we are well on track to meet our 45% reduction target by 2030. Our non-fossil fuel sources now contribute 47.1% to India's total installed electricity generation capacity, which makes our 50% clean energy goal by 2030 a very achievable reality. A massive natural carbon sink of 2.29 billion tons has been created through enhanced forest and tree cover, and it moves us closer to our 2.5 to 3 billion ton target by 2030. And these milestones embody the vision of our Panchamitra, the 5 nectar elements of climate action, announced by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji at COP26 in Glasgow. And over the next few days, we will not just be discussing policies, but we will be developing sustainable solutions to address the impact of climate change. And we begin with climate science of heat and water, understanding how rising temperatures and erratic monsoons threaten our food security and our rural livelihoods. In the health session, we will focus on extreme heat, climate-sensitive diseases, and the resilience of our healthcare systems. Our sessions on work will highlight how soaring temperatures affect our labor productivity, especially for those toiling in the open, such as our farmers. And when we discuss the built environment, we are shaping cities that must protect and not endanger our people. This conference is about action. It's about developing practical, scalable, and evidence-based solutions for India's climate resilience vision of 2047. And we expect to develop concrete, actionable strategies in 6 key areas, which are: number 1, advancing scientific understanding by strengthening climate data, risk modeling, and early warning systems for evidence-based policymaking. Also, scaling climate finance and investment by unlocking resources through innovative financing, private sector engagement, and public-private partnerships. Sectoral policy recommendations by mainstreaming adaptation in agriculture, health, urban planning, livelihoods, and water security, and also urban and rural resilience by promoting ecosystem-based solutions, heat action plans, climate resilience infrastructure, and sustainable water management. Point number 5 is the international collaboration by leveraging various forums for collective resilience. And lastly, bridging research and implementation by translating insights into policies, pilot projects, and scalable adaptation models. However, adaptation finance remains a major challenge. With limited private sector investments, the annual funding gap runs into hundreds of millions. The UNEP Adaptation Gap Report of 2024 also highlights that financing is not keeping pace with the needs and it is delaying adaptation efforts. And to accelerate climate action, enhanced international finance, public grant-based and concessional is crucial to aligning with the UNFCCC principles of climate justice, equity, and differentiated responsibilities. India's green future is a journey we are shaping with determination and action. Every step we take, from harnessing renewable energy to restoring forests and securing water for future generations, is driven by one belief that sustainability and progress must go hand in hand. And at the heart of our approach lies the timeless principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family. And like any family, we share both our triumphs and our challenges. This journey is not ours alone. Climate change does not recognize borders, and India-led initiatives like the International Solar Alliance, the CDRI, and LEAD IT, which transcend borders and unite nations for a common cause. These initiatives reflect our deep commitment to global collaboration. And as we gather here, let this conference be more than a dialogue. Let it be a crucible where ideas crystallize into actions, where scientific inquiry fuels bold policymaking, and the principles of sustainability shape our future. By the end of this conference, we must emerge with concrete, actionable strategies that will guide India's resilience-building efforts towards 2047 and beyond. Let us seize this opportunity to drive innovation, policy coherence, and global collaboration for a climate-secure future. Ladies and gentlemen, as we march towards the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047, which is a national resolve, let us leave behind a healthier, cleaner, and a more sustainable planet for our generations to come. And with this vision in mind, I extend my best wishes for a productive, insightful conference. Let this be a defining moment in our journey, in India's journey towards a climate resilient and sustainable future. Thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir, for such a succinct, crucial, and critical address. It is my honor now to invite Shri Suman Beri, Honorable Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog, to kindly address the gathering with his insightful words.
Distinguished colleagues from the Government of India and also from Harvard University, I think time is getting on, and I see my colleague Amit Verma, who labored mightily on my prepared text. But in the interests of time, and also not to duplicate what others have said before, I will restrict myself to just a few points and observations. But let me first express my condolences, and I'm sure the rest of you, to the person who ought to have been delivering this address, which is the Minister Bhupender Yadav, who has provided strong, steady leadership to India in the environment area. I am a poor substitute for him, but we have heard the remarks of the ministry in what Honorable Minister of State had to say. So in my limited moments, I'll talk a bit more broadly around the topic. Let me, though, first start with the organization I lead, or that I've been appointed to lead, which is the Niti Aayog. And for our Harvard colleagues, Niti is often capitalized because it's an acronym for the National Institute for Transforming India. But it is also in Hindi the word for policy. It is in the building that used to be occupied by the Planning Commission. Honorable Prime Minister, one of his first acts once he came into power in 2014 was to indicate that a planning commission was no longer appropriate in the 21st century. And so instead of being a planning commission, we are a policy commission and trying to provide substance and content to that change. The Planning Commission, as was the case because of its association with the 5-year plans of Soviet Russia, worked at the level of 5-year plans. But you know that this event is called India 2047, and as Honorable Minister of State indicated, the importance of 2047 is that it's the 100th year of Indian independence. And in 2022, shortly after I was appointed by him to this role, Honorable Prime Minister set forth the vision, the ambition, the challenge to all of India's citizens and by implication to all of government, including Niti Aayog, to transform India into a developed society, not economy, developed society by 2047. So that was 25 years ago when the call came. We're 3 years into it now, so 22 years, not a lot of time. But the analogy that he offered at that time and has offered since is that in 1922, nobody would have believed that India would be an independent nation by 1947. Indeed, the buildings that surround you in Delhi were being constructed, the Parliament House, etc., in the expectation that Imperial Britain would last for 1,000 more years. 25 years later, it was gone, partly through to some degree, support from the United States. So the challenge before us is to transform India in the face of unstable geopolitics, and also facing the unprecedented challenges of climate change. I do just want to acknowledge the existing support that Niti Aayog, in the person of Tarun Khanna, has enjoyed in setting up the hugely successful Atal Innovation Mission. I don't know, Tarun, did that predate the Mittal Institute, or was it an activity of the Institute? But anyway, it really is an example of how ideas can be transformational. And we are going from 10,000 Atal Tinkering Labs to 50,000 in AIM 2.0. So Tarun, on behalf of Niti Aayog, let me thank you in the presence of your Harvard colleagues. I think just a few points that I'll touch on briefly. First is that the focus now in this, as I understand it, and I'm overwhelmed by the size of the audience, is on adaptation rather than mitigation. I think that's important, it's right, and it is, as it were, India-centric. A lot of the focus on mitigation was, frankly, driven by the concerns of the countries of the North. India the leadership of Prime Minister Modi was evident at the Paris COP when I think it's fair to say, in the face of received advice from his bureaucracy, who thought that basically mitigation was a problem for rich countries because they had benefited from the use of fossil fuels that had made them rich, he decided that no, this was both a global responsibility, and India is a globally responsible power, but also that this was a way into new technologies that would harness India's minds. So India, as was pointed out by the Honorable Minister of State, has fully subscribed to the global mitigation agenda. But what is important about this convening, I think, is that it is about adaptation, and that is extremely important. I would say that the issue then for Niti Aayog, for the ambition of India, is can we not only maintain a respectable growth of 6.5%, but accelerate it in welfare terms, not just in growth terms, to 7-8%, while meeting the challenges and countering the undertow of adaptation. And so as the discussion goes forward in the next 4 days, I think the question of whether the two are compatible or not would be something of great interest to us at Niti Aayog. Let me say that adaptation is partly a question of technological fixes, but it is also, frankly, a question also of policy. We have a session on the built environment. Rahul Mehrotra is here. And when I was the chief economist of Shell, we were told that really one of the best ways of locking in a low carbon footprint is urban design, public transport, the structure of buildings. And one of the advantages of having still much of our growth ahead of us is that we can make intelligent choices if we know what those choices are and if the policies support that. And so it is for that reason that I totally agree with Secretary MOEFCC in the preparation of the National Adaptation Plan, that bringing a whole adaptation agenda to complement the now well-established mitigation agenda is of huge importance for India's development. The second point I would make in the adaptation space was a point that was made in 2023, our G20 year, and of course this handsome complex, Bharat Mandapam, was created for the G20 conference in September 2023. We had Robert Stevens from Harvard here for that conference, but we also had my good friend Jessica Seddon, who made the following, I think, rather important point, since we have civil servants on the podium. She said, it's not only a question of predictable extreme peaks, heat being the case in point, but that you can have reversals. Areas that were expected to be in droughts can have floods. And what she said was an implication of that was that we have to be flexible in program design. And that kind of flexibility doesn't come easily in the Indian bureaucracy. We have schemes, and the schemes have, protocols and rubrics. And so I think the governance dimension of adaptation is something which is a large unexplored agenda at the moment. And amongst other things, this is something that Niti Aayog has some experience with. It is going to probably involve more empowerment of the district collectors, people at the ground, because these issues are going to arise in very unpredictable ways and very localized ways. I have spoken longer than I wanted to. Two final points. One is that the US has been cooperating had been cooperating under the Biden administration under a program called ISET, the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, with our national security advisor. Now, I believe under the Trump administration, after Prime Minister Modi's visit, this is now called Trust. But all of the focus there does tend to be in things like AI, quantum, etc. I would, since we have the provost of Harvard here, I would just say that collaboration in areas like this, because these are forms of non-traditional security, may in due course also be integrated into these government-to-government schemes, so that events like this are not entirely dependent on philanthropists, etc., but are part of the way in which the two nations communicate with each other. And my final 2 points would be, first, documentation. Tarun is from the Harvard Business School, and the resources that the Harvard Business School is able to put into case studies, to a lesser extent, I think, Harvard Kennedy School, are legendary. And so, as NITI attempts to, as it were, be a medium for transferring state best practice to make it common practice, some collaboration in the documentation of these experiments, I think, would be a useful spin-off of this event and those that are to follow. And I would also, refer to the point that it is the Lakshmi Mittal South Asia Institute, and we know that intellectual interchange across South Asia is much weaker than, say, Latin America or Southeast Asia. So I would also commend to the Mittal Institute that that the nations of South Asia learn from each other. And it's impressive that if you like, philanthropists of South Asian origin are contributing to Harvard, including Anand Mahindra, etc. I think, and it's not that we want to go after the same people, but given that adaptation is going to be so decentralized and so localized, I think that learning a thing or two about how to mobilize philanthropy to support government in this is another offshoot of the convening that starts today. So sorry to have been the night watchman here, but it was impressive for me to see quite the scale of what's being attempted here. So let me thank the ministry, and let me also thank Harvard, represented by the Vice Provost, for their commitment to India, and Tarun for his commitment to Niti Aayog. Thank you.
I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the dignitaries for their extremely invigorating words, insightful ideas, and their experiences.